Hi, Tim from Fair Play Now. It's the English National Lockdown, day 4 on the 8th of November 2020. And it's Remembrance Sunday, the day when we in this country just spend at least a couple of minutes remembering all our war dead in the First and Second World Wars and subsequent wars from there. And what a sad affair that was today. Only about 30 people, including the Queen and I think Boris Johnson, allowed to attend, and the thousands of people who love to attend that and want to attend that not being able to do so because of the whole COVID thing. And I'd left a comment in someone else's video that I watched this week. What did I say? Something along the lines of just over 100 years ago, blokes were going over the top with a 99% chance of being mowed down by enemy gunfire, machine gun fire. And fast forward 100 years, here we are, cowering in our so-called trenches, in our lockdown in our homes, all over a disease with a 99% recovery rate. And that's the difference 100 years has made as far as I'm concerned. And it's a very, very sorry state of affairs. Now, I was watching a video yesterday, a guy called Vincent Veritas. I'll put a link to this video in the comments section below. Now, he came out with a video about psychopaths, how the country is run by psychopaths, how we're in this situation because of psychopaths, and how basically they don't give a toss about how much we're suffering, how much we're losing out financially, how much we're losing out socially, and how much our lives are destroyed. As long as their agenda's met, they don't care. And I was thinking about it because I know for a fact, or from things I've sort of read, there's roughly one psychopath per 1,000 head of population, which means in Britain, with the population approaching 70 million, there's going to be 70,000 psychopaths wandering around the country at any one time. And not that you can do it, of course, now, but back in the good old days when you could go to large events like, say, a big festival or a big football match, 20,000 spectators there, you'd be rubbing shoulders with about 20 psychopaths on average. But don't worry, there's very little chance of getting a knife plunged into your back or something horrible like that, because the vast majority of these psychopaths are either, at worst, petty criminals, and most of them are actually sort of perfectly law-abiding citizens. But if you've ever wondered why these sort of rogue or sort of cowboy builders, rogue traders, will happily rip off some poor little old lady out of her sort of life savings with no remorse whatsoever, and it's probably because, you know, they're a psychopath. If you've ever wondered why some horrible boss is perfectly willing to make some poor old guy or lady in the business redundant just a couple of years before their retirement, thereby sort of messing up their pension, and despite the fact that the person's been there for 40 years, given 40 years of sterling service, but they're made redundant, messing up their sort of pension, it's because the boss is probably a psychopath. And there's many other instances, you know, if you see things going on where things are done with very little compassion, very little empathy, very little remorse, it's probably because the people doing it are psychopaths. So they're very common. They're a lot more common than you think. And if you think they care about you, and if you think they care about your livelihood and your family, you're very much mistaken, I'm afraid. And unfortunately, these people, the higher you go up into organisations, the more common they become. And whereas it's 1 in 1,000 in the general population, probably by the time you get to the top echelons, it may be as low as 1 in 100, or even 1 in 10 people at that kind of level are psychopaths. So they're very much influencing things, very much running things. And I know this. I've got a personal story, second-hand story. And when I was 15, my mum remarried this lovely guy called Derek. Sadly, sort of deceased now, but he was a great guy and very clever guy, actually. He got a first-class honours degree from Oxford University in chemistry. And how hard has that got to be to do? But very, very clever guy. He then worked for GlaxoSmithKline, GSK. Well, back in those days when he was there, it was actually called Beecham, but that's what they're called now. And I always remember him saying he got to a certain level, because he is so clever, he could have gone all the way to the top in that organisation. He could have been certainly on the board or even the CEO, and he was that clever and that had that much ability. But he said he could only get to a certain level and he didn't want to go any higher because it would then start involving a lot of horrible things, a lot of double dealing, a lot of backstabbing, and he just didn't want any part of it. So he kind of allowed himself to be sidelined, and I think he became something like the European marketing manager, which is still doing very well, but it's definitely sidelined off that sort of route up to the top. And it's just because he didn't want to have any part in this. Well, it's basically because he wasn't a psychopath. It's a very interesting story. And I've been thinking, how can you avoid the clutches of these psychopaths? And I was watching a very interesting video the other day. They're talking about people's belief systems. We've all got a belief system based on our core values, and we build our belief systems around those. And your belief system is basically what you believe in, what you don't believe in, what you think's right and what you think's wrong, what you think should happen in society and in your own life, and what you think shouldn't happen. And we all build up these belief systems. But here's the scary thing. The vast majority of your belief system is put into your head by other people, and only a relatively small amount of your belief system is created by your own personal experience. So just think how frightening that is. You know, you've got psychopaths at the top kind of influencing you through the mass media, through government institutions, and there they are sort of putting kind of beliefs into your head, building your belief system to essentially support what they're doing. How can you defend yourself from this? Basically, just try and either shut yourself off completely from these external influences, putting these belief systems into your head or building your belief system, and just listen a lot more to your own personal experience. And just imagine if you did that with the whole COVID thing. Just think, what is your... forget about what's being told to you by the media and the government and friends, family and all the rest of it, and just think what your personal experience is of COVID. And if you're anything like me and most people, I suspect, it's pretty much no personal experience of it whatsoever. You don't really know anyone who's had it, or certainly don't know anyone who's died of it. And if you're very, very unlucky, I'd suggest you might know maybe just a friend of a friend of a friend maybe who had it and passed away. And that would be worst case scenario, wouldn't it? You know, if you're very, very unlucky, that's what your personal experience would be. But even if you had that experience, would it be enough for you to be thinking that the whole country should be locked down, all our liberty should be taken away? And I don't think so. And when you sort of think of your personal experience, if you're like me, your personal experience is hardly any effect from COVID whatsoever. It certainly just doesn't add up. So, just a few thoughts there. It's a bit of a slow news day, apart from the Remembrance Sunday. Also, we're waking up to the fact that Joe Biden has won the US presidency. But I don't think it was really a case of him winning it. It was a case of Donald Trump losing the election, if you see what I mean. And people, I suspect, voted for Biden purely and simply because he wasn't Donald Trump, rather than him bringing any positives to his own positives to the party. But I'm just going to sort of finish on this final note. My wife was talking on the phone to one of her friends who's a very ill lady, and she's about sort of late 40s, but unfortunately suffering from some very, very serious health things. So she's always in and out of hospital, and her latest trip to hospital I think just a few days ago or a week or two ago, she asked 2 different nurses basically about the COVID situation. One of them, I think she said something like, "Oh, it's dreadful about this whole COVID thing," and the nurse just didn't say anything, just stayed silent. Second nurse, totally different nurse, she said something like, "Oh, you must be rushed off your feet, really, really busy with this whole COVID situation." And again, the nurse said nothing. I make of that what you will, but I suspect they're not really that busy, and they're just staying silent because they're embarrassed. Because if they really were busy, surely they'd say something like, "Oh yeah, tell me about it. I've sort of only had about 1 day off in the last 6 months, and I'm just being totally rushed off our feet." But no, they stayed silent. So you've got to ask yourself why that was the case. But anyway, just a final thought to dwell on until tomorrow. So that's the end of English Lockdown Day 4. Tim from Fair Play Now, thanks for watching.